Hey, what's up, my fellow cinephiles, or in this case, I guess film show fam? My film fam. Hope you're all doing well, and welcome to the first episode of that one show. Man, yeah, I have quite a few of other for that one movie, but I just realized this is the first time I got around to doing that one show. So, for those of you that aren't familiar, this is just a, series of videos slash live stream where I just discussed a particular show. In this case, it's The Bad Batch. Yes, I know I'm behind. I'm late to this one. It's what I'm like a little over a year late on this one, but regardless, I'm glad I got through it. I finally watched it all on everyone's recommendations. I've heard it was good. I heard good things about it, and I just haven't got around to doing it. But finally, I finally finished it. And this is after I've already seen Clone Wars and Rebels, and so yeah, this is just one of those shows on my to watch list. There's just so much content out there to consume, right? So yeah, man, finally got around to it, and just spoilers, I loved it. It was a great show. It was a great show, so I'm glad I watched it. Thank you to all those who suggested it. Yeah, it was a great journey, great experience. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get right into it. I'll have timestamps in the description below where applicable, so all of you catching the replay, you can just jump down, and I think I'm going to do it by seasons, this one. Kind of just go through some highlights of the seasons and just at the end give my overall thoughts, which I already gave, but yeah, spoilers. So yeah, you can probably leave now. I already said I liked it. No, but yeah, I'll just go over all that overall thoughts again to summarize and recap at the end there. So, all right. So starting off, for those of you, I take it for those of you tuning in or watching this, you're already familiar. You've already seen it, and you're just. I'm guessing you're curious to hear what my thoughts are. But for those of you that are just came along just to kind of hear some thoughts, and you're also interested in watching this but you haven't yet, I will be going over spoilers, so just a heads up on that. I will be discussing spoilers, so just FYI on that. But if you still prefer to stay and spoilers doesn't you don't care about spoilers and you just want to hear some thoughts on this, then thank you first of all for staying regardless of that. But yeah, you've been warned. Just letting you guys, you've been warned. All right, here we go. So created by Dave Filoni, Jennifer Corbett, I think that's how you pronounce her name, from 2021 to 2024. So yeah, like I said, a little over a year that this ran. 47 episodes total, over 3 seasons. So yeah, not too bad compared to the Clone Wars, which had 7 seasons, right? So 3 seasons. And I will say, I know the Clone Wars kind of suffered from, and I have heard this from a lot of people, right, from filler. And that happens with some shows that have a longer run, right, multiple seasons. They tend to kind of just do just that, right, fill in some of those gaps in the seasons between arcs, major arcs, with these episodes that kind of can stand off as can stand on their own as one-offs. But this one, there were some, I guess if you want to call them fillers, but they didn't really feel like fillers, if that makes sense. They, each episode, felt intriguing. It was interesting, and it had, I don't know, it just seemed like it had a place, even though it wasn't part of the overall arc. I don't know, I can't really explain it. It's just, I didn't get that filler vibe. Sometimes when you're watching a show, you can kind of tell when some episodes are filler. But this one, yeah, this one just I didn't get that feeling. Every episode, I just watched it straight through, from start to finish. And then also, kind of to further go off of that, for Clone Wars, there's another show where I went back and I saw after the fact, and that I jumped in with arcs. I went back and I heard there were certain arcs that were intriguing, and some that caught my eye, my interest, and so I started with those. And I just kind of avoided some of the fillers. And then from there, after I jumped around with the arcs, and I figured, okay, I'll go back and watch some of the fillers based off. There's a bunch of lists you can find. You go and Google or do an internet search for Clone Wars arcs, suggested arcs, and you can find various arcs. But yeah, this one, like I said, it's just I didn't do that. I just started from the beginning and just went, and it was great. Yeah, all the way through. So of course, some episodes were better than others, but yeah, it was overall it was a great journey. So season 1, I'll just start with season 1 here. Again, I'm going to go over the highlights of some of the seasons, and then as I go along, I will give my thoughts on here on some of the things that happened throughout the season. So season 1 in general, 16 episodes. That one kind of focuses more on the Bad Batch and kind of their transition from the Empire. They started initially working with the Empire, and then they kind of realized what they're all about, and they want to kind of separate themselves from that. They are, in case some of you, for those of you who don't know, they're in essence defective clones, right? They're Clone Force 99. So those are labeled that's a label to give the defective clones that don't follow your typical cloning, your typical cloning growth or procedures. And so these have some sort of enhancements to them, but they're also somewhat defective, right? So they're, in that sense, they go over more of that, who they are, their individualities, or each of their special abilities. And that's pretty much the overarching theme for season 1, right? And then as I went through this, I noticed, I don't know how I avoided all these spoilers. Or I guess because I wasn't looking for them. But with this, season 1 also finds the inclusion or the appearance of Omega here. That's the little girl here in front. And initially starts off with the 5 members of the Bad Batch, and then they end up kind of taking on Omega, and that's obviously, you guys know the story with that. But she ends up becoming the 6th member there, and a lot of that's kind of adjusting. Season 1's like we're adjusting and having her part of the group, and not being used to having a kid around, and all these the members of the Bad Batch, they're kind of taking to her in different ways. And so that kind of goes on throughout all the seasons, right? Kind of having this either little sister, or in some cases a daughter like figure with among them. And so it's kind of cool to see that progression throughout all the seasons and all the episodes. And it's it just kind of seems like it was already planned ahead, right? Like everything was already the overarching theme for this, and kind of like the subplots within this. It was just it was well written from that. There's a lot of episodes here well written, just overall well written show. But yeah, so season 1, we also saw, again, I didn't realize this, but appearance of Fennec Shan. There was an episode where she came in and she was trying to capture Omega after she had already won with the Bad Batch. So that was kind of cool to see in there. For those of you who don't know, she made some appearances in, what was it, the Book of Boba Fett, if I remember correctly. I always forget. I always get the Mandalorian, which, like the season of Mandalorian with Boba and the Book of Boba Fett. But, she made a live action appearance, of course. And then she, I believe she also carried over from the Clone Wars, if I remember correctly. I should have researched that a little more. But yeah, it was just surprising to see her in this. I had no idea she was going to make an appearance in here. So yeah, it was really cool to see her in here. And then a couple episodes later, so we see Fennec Shan. And then also another surprising appearance we had was Cad Bane. He also made an appearance in here, and also same reason, he was trying to go after Omega and capture Omega. So both they were working for different people, right? They're both, Fennec Shan and Cad Bane, are bounty hunters. They both working for different, hired by different people, trying to capture Omega for different reasons. And so, you kind of have this build up between the two. You have these two appearances, and you kind of start to wonder. You kind of build up that suspense, and like, oh man, they're both after her. Are they gonna cross paths? And sure enough, yep. And then episode 9, Bounty Lost. You see Cad Bane versus Fennec Shan, and this was a cool fight to see, man. These two bounty hunters who are legendary, or infamous, if you want to say, or famous, however you want to label it. But yeah, this was really cool to see them kind of go wit for wit, and with their skills with each other. And it was. Of course, for those of you who know Cad Bane, he was quicker on the draw, but as far as like the cleverness and just, trying to outsmart their way, it seems like Fennec was more on top of it. But no, this was a really cool fight to see as this went on. And I don't know if we ever saw this, and this might be the last time I think we've seen this. I'm trying to go off of memory here where else, but I think this, I don't know if you guys let me know in the comments here in the chat if they do cross paths again. But yeah, no, this was really cool to see them go at it. Let me see here. So, real quick, speaking of chat, let me address the chat here. We got Blue Tattoo. What's up, Blue? Thank you for coming through, my good sir. S Beam in the house. What is up, S Beam? Thalia Mario, thank you for joining. Appreciate it. The best clones. Yeah, Clone Force 99. Yep. Phoenix debut. Okay, there it is. Yeah, Phoenix debut was in Mando. Thank you for confirming, SB. There you go. I couldn't. Sometimes it's been a while. I always get those two, the Mando and in the Book of Boba Fett, where which one's which and where they cross paths. But yeah, thanks for confirming that. So yeah, this was really cool to see them two go at it. And this same episode actually was really cool. there's a lot of lore that is that we find out in this series overall, and it kind of adds to, if you want to, depending on how deep you want to go in the Star Wars lore, and especially in this era of the Clone Wars. It was also revealed in this episode that Omega was actually an unmodified clone of Jango Fett. Jango Fett being from making his appearance in Episode 2, Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, right? You find out that obviously all the clones are based off of Jango Fett, the bounty hunter. But Omega ends up being an unmodified clone as well, pretty much similar to Boba Fett, right? If you guys remember from Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, Jango Fett had requested an unmodified clone to basically be his, to kind of act as like his son, right? He was raising him to be his son, and Boba grows up normally like a normal human, whereas all the clones grow at an accelerated rate, right, to become soldiers and fighters. But Boba was just left unaltered, unmodified. And so I believe, if I remember correctly, yeah, so then Omega would be similar in that aspect, right? She's unmodified and she's just growing normally. It's like a normal human. But she is, so she was a clone, but an unmodified clone. So, yeah. Yeah, we have the movie Cat and Geo in the house. Feezy, no spoilers at all, please. Thank you. Up, too late. I already gave the warning. We're going over spoilers. Yeah. Yeah. Just go watch the show, Geo. Exactly what S-Beam says. Yeah. Go watch the show. Watch the damn show. It's great. I'm telling you, it's great. Yeah. So that was an interesting episode there. All around. Again, you got Finnick versus Cad Bane, and then the reveal of Omega being an unmodified clone there. Let's see here. One of the next episodes that was kind of cool to see that I wasn't aware. Again, I was able to avoid all these spoilers. I don't know how, or maybe I just wasn't really paying attention at the time because I wasn't watching the show. But yeah, we also get a kind of sneak peek at Hera. I guess not really a sneak peek, but we kind of get a look inside of a young Hera. I probably should reword that. We kind of get a look into the life of a young Hera. So yeah, her 2 episodes that kind of cover her little story, or somewhat of an origin, I guess. It's not really an in-depth origin, but you have she's with her parents, so you see who her parents are, and they get into trouble, and she requests the help of the Bad Batch to come and save them. And so, but it was just cool to see Hera. I didn't, I kind of recognized the look, but at first I just thought it was someone who was of the same species, Hera, but then they end up saying her name, and it was just kind of like, oh well, that's cool. And then of course you see Chopper in there, so her longtime droid buddy, sidekick, Chopper, was in there as well. So that was actually cool to see also. But yeah, really, really cool to see them both in there, Chopper and Hera. So obviously she goes on into Rebels, the other Star Wars show in Rebels, and where she's older there, and of course Ahsoka also, the live action Ahsoka show, she makes an appearance there as well. So yeah, really cool to see. But yeah, those are all the highlights from season 1. Again, as I mentioned, just kind of build up overall, and a little kind of one of the subplots too is you find, so Crosshair, right? Crosshair was a member of the Bad Batch. He's the sniper, the sharpshooter. His heightened sense of accuracy, and I guess just that, right? Just being really good with the gun, hence the name. So he kind of separates from the Bad Batch, and he follows the Empire, whereas the rest of the Bad Batch kind of go off on their own. They realize that the Empire is, they kind of they're starting to see the bad ways of the Empire. But Crosshair, he's more of like, good soldiers always follow orders, and that's his mentality, right? He's all about obeying orders. He's a soldier, and that type of persona. And so they kind of have differences in that, and so they split ways. Crosshair stays with the Empire, and then the Bad Batch go off and do their own thing with Omega. So then that leads us to season 2. Season 2 is also 16 episodes. The overall theme of season 2 was all about Crosshair, right? And just how, I won't say all about, but it kind of seemed to focus more on Crosshair and how he is, how he's adjusting, and how he's starting to see what the Empire actually is. And that is mostly due because they're also in this season, they're starting to phase out the clones themselves, right? So there's Attack of the Clones for episode 2, and we find out that the clones are being created, and so obviously the Clone Wars, the show, and then Bad Batch here, and this takes place after, I should have specified this earlier, but this takes place after Order 66 is initiated, where Senator or Chancellor Palpatine, Darth Sidious, orders all the clones to kill all the Jedi. And so that has happened, and this kind of picks up shortly after that. And I forget how long after, but so they're, they're kind of adjusting to that, whatever's minimal Jedi left. And so that's happened, and now this show is kind of covering the period where the clones are starting to be phased out because there's no longer as much of a use for them as there initially was. And they are, I forget the officer of the Empire, he's now suggesting and recommending to Admiral Tarkin that they should use enlisted people, just normal people that are enlisted in the army of the Empire. And I forget the actual name of it, but yeah, so now they're seeing that transition of, okay, well, the clones, that's old news basically, and now we want to hire these actual these people, right? These actual people to join the military, just heightened sense, not heightened sense, but just kind of normal sensibilities, and they kind of argue and state their claims of why that would be better, and they start to phase out all the clones basically. And so season 2, Crosshair starts to realize this, and he sees that, and he kind of sees the discrimination, I guess you want to call it, of how the Empire in general starts to treat the clones, and they kind of just like show. It's really interesting, man. I was not expecting that. I think I may have heard the fact that they want to phase out the clones, but how they portrayed that in this show, man, it was just really like it hits on a lot of points at home, like in reality, right? It's just like on discrimination and prejudice and things like that. And it's kind of, it was really interesting to see. I was really, I don't want to say shocked, but again, the writing was just really good. I would just, if you haven't seen it, Geo movie, I would recommend it. So that's overall. Sorry, I know it's a long-winded summary to say that's what season 2 is. Crosshair kind of seeing how the Empire is how they really are. Seeing from what they are, even though he's all about good soldier follow orders. Good soldiers follow orders. So. Season 2, though, I will point out, I just found this out before for prepping for this stream. On IMDb has 5 top-rated episodes. Season 1 had like 3, and I think season 3 had 2. So season 2, top 5 rated episodes, and I would have to say I would agree with that. This would be probably the best season of the 3. Not to say the other 2 are bad or horrible. I mean, like I said, overall the show's good, but I think all the high points, all the high notes, the strengths, the stronger episodes are in season 2. It was just, man. And I'll go over one of my favorite episodes. I think I have to say probably the whole show is in this season. And I'm gonna jump right into it. That was episode 12 here of season 2. So The Outpost. This one, man, this was a really powerful episode. I think everything I just mentioned could be summed up in this episode here. You have Crosshair. He's ends up being assigned to a remote planet, or an ice planet, basically. Hence, where the outpost, the name of this episode comes in. It's an outpost on this snowy planet, and he meets up with these other clones that are stationed there, led by Commander Mayday, which you see here on the left. And here those clones are on. They were sent there to protect some cargo in these cases, right? These boxes, and they don't have any idea what it is. They were just sent there, and I forget how long they've been there, but they've been stationed for a while there. Crosshair gets sent there as well. He goes with another Imperial officer, and they get sent on a mission to retrieve these cases that were stolen with very minimal, resources. The Imperial officer there, again, kind of going back to like the whole kind of being discriminatory towards the clones. Just, hey, deal with it. You guys have what you need. You go. Very minimal resources, right? He's just like, you just use what you have and you go. He didn't want to give them anything additional. So just they follow orders and they go. And this whole time, Crosshair's building Crosshair and Mayday kind of seem to be building this relationship, and Mayday's, he's more of like, how would you say? He's more of, he also recognizes how the clones are being treated, and he's more spoken. He speaks out more about how unfair they're being treated, but within his place, right? He's outranked by this Imperial officer, but he's sticking up for his clones. He knows they're being treated badly, but he's still speaking up where he can, but also being respectful. And so Yeah, and so they go on this mission. They end up going to these. They find the cargo that was stolen. They open it up and they find out it's just what is it, trooper gear, like helmet and armor and things like that. It wasn't really anything of importance, but they were led to believe that they were there because this had high importance. And they lost, Commander Mayday lost troopers protecting this. Troopers had died, and he mentions that. And he had, again, man, really powerful moment where he had all their helmets of the troopers he lost. He had them lined up on, I think it was a box or a case, and then it just kind of shows he was just saying, these are all the troopers we lost, and we didn't have any help, no other, no other aid, and yeah, it was just, man, it was just really, really powerful, like I said. And so that then they realize there's nothing more in these cases than just trooper armor that just, these clones were sacrificing their lives for. And so they try to make their trek back to where the outpost was, and they had traveled through the snow and the blizzards. And Commander Mayday here on the left, he was injured, and so Crosshair didn't want to leave him behind because by then they had established a relationship, and he carried him all the way back. And then by the time they got back, Crosshair here on the right was telling that Imperial officer, he needs help, he needs medical attention, and that Imperial officer was just like, no. Pretty much like, no, he'll be fine. Just leave him there, let him be. And then, yeah, he ends up dying. And that was a breaking point for Crosshair. He then, at that moment, he just realizes that they were the Empire was just shitty, basically, and they didn't give a shit about them at all. And it's just, I'm kind of shortening, but just to build up to that point, right? Again, this is episode 12 of season 2, and you see the internal conflict within Crosshair. It's kind of similar to how Darth Vader towards the end of Return of the Jedi, right? He starts to have that internal conflict, or even prior to that, even before Anakin became Darth Vader, there was some internal conflict. He ended up going to the dark side, but here I would say it's like the opposite, right? He tries to follow orders, but at the same time he just realizes, this whole time I've been doing what I've been told, and for what? Just means it's worthless. It doesn't mean anything to the Empire or to these officers, and he kind of mourns and he grieves over the loss of Mayday. Awesome character, by the way. I mean, that I love. I want to say, is he commander or captain? I forget. Clone Commander Mayday. Yeah. Speaking of, if we get a Hot Toys figures, I'm a collector of Hot Toys of 6-scale figures. My vote would be for Commander Mayday. So I hope we get Commander Mayday. But yeah, I love that character. It's just, man, it was just a powerful episode. So that he ends up. Crosshair, again, spoilers, he ends up shooting that Imperial officer right there, like just point blank, just straight up, just in cold blood, and he's just so pissed, he just snaps, and he collapses because he's just so exhausted. But yeah, man, that's such a good episode, man. I just love that episode, and it was one of the highest rated episodes of season 2, like top rated per IMDb. So yeah, I know that was a long discussion there on that one, but like I said, it's just my favorite episode. I thought it was definitely worthwhile. If nothing else, this episode could possibly stand on its own, but it hits harder if you build up to it, right? If just starting from season 2 and having maybe watching a recap of season 1, starting with season 2 and watching that build up. And this is, for those of you who know me and know that I love watching animated stuff, hence Bad Batch and Clone Wars and things like that, and just other animated movies. And I've always made the argument that there are some animated shows and movies that do a better job of telling a story than some live action movies. Like they put some live action movies to shame, right? The writing in there and the acting in some of those shows and movies, those animated movies, they do a really good job. And I think this episode right here was one of them. And it's just like, it really hit me right here. I really felt this episode, and really gut wrenching, and really, really, like I said, really powerful. So that not a lot of movies, like live action movies, have done for me. So yeah, awesome. I can't give this episode enough kudos. And then a couple of episodes later, by this point, I would say Tech of the Bad Batch had already been my favorite. I already deemed it. I hereby declare Tech is my favorite Bad Batch member. And so much so that I already liked the way his overall armor, his suit, I guess you want to call it, just the way his appearance, his look, stood out from the rest. I just liked how that was different, and it just looked really cool. And so I ended up getting the figure, the Hot Toys figure of him only just because of that reason. But now watching the show, hearing and seeing how he was, it just solidified that, and I was just really glad I got that. But yeah, man, I love Tech, and then so it was really, man, it was really saddening to see in episode 16, Plan 99, he end up losing Tech. He sacrifices himself to save the Bad Batch, which I was not expecting. I guess in some sense you could say that at some point you're probably going to lose one of the Bad Batch members, but I wasn't expecting Tech, and it was just, just how his dry humor for one, and just how he was. You would think, of all the people, you would think Hunter. He seems to be the one that has like more like that would sacrifice himself, more tendencies to do that, or even like Wrecker. But yeah, I didn't see with Tech. I did not see this coming, and so. Yeah, this I think this almost, I can't remember. I think it did, or it almost did. It brought some tears to my eyes, man. It was just tough to see Tech go by. Again, I know it's animated, right? Why is this guy crying over animated and animated content? But again, that just is a testament to the writing. And like I always say, it's like no matter what it is, if the writing is there and the acting is there, I can care less if it's an animated movie or not. Like that, there's some movies where there's people trapped in a room or trapped in a small space, and if the writing's good, it just makes it intriguing. And so, yeah, I just really loved. This is another episode that I loved just because I wasn't expecting it. It was just really heartbreaking to see, and you kind of think, okay, well maybe because they didn't really show him like land. He just falls right into this cloud and this mist, and so you kind of think, how that typical trope where movies be like, you see him fall, but you don't know if they actually died or not because they don't actually show it. So there's a chance they could come back, but again, no, as you all know who've seen the show, he doesn't, and so he's just gone. And so it's really, really, and again, going back to writing, they actually touch on this later on, where it's not just the Bad Batch, the rest of the Bad Batch and Omega, or we lost Tech and the show goes on. They actually go back and they touch on it, and they show throughout some episodes how they adjust to not having Tech, and they reminisce, and it's just there's a grieving period there, and they all go through it, and it's just really, it was really cool to see that written in there into that like detail, and again that emotion about relatable. I know we've all lost somebody in our lives, and just we all grieve differently, so it was just cool to see that the writers actually implemented that in the show as well for the rest of the Bad Batch. So yeah, really, again, another great episode there. So sticking with season 2, Dahlia Meyer says the Outpost is one of the best. Yeah, I would say for me personally, it definitely is the best, but for me, it's like the best episode of the episode, or the show there. See, going back to Dahlia Meyer says the two episodes that I don't like, can't stand Hera's accent. I don't think that bothered me because I can't recall like how it sounded, to be honest. I think I was just more intrigued the fact that she was in the show, but I don't think it bothered me as much. But I guess maybe that's something that just I wasn't really keen on. And then Beam, I want to watch Bad Batch now. Yeah, man, I'm at a point where I think I might want to go back and watch it again, but there's still so much content out there to watch. So I don't blame you if you go back and give it another viewing. Just have it on the background or something. Let's see. So going on to, this is episode 22, another interesting episode with an interesting appearance. So this was a Wookiee Jedi, and I think we've seen this somewhere else. But chat, let me know where else a Wookiee Jedi made an appearance. But we get one here. A younger Jedi, it seems like. I'm not sure the age, but I think the Wookiee's name was Gungi or Gungi. I forget how to pronounce it. I see how it's spelled, but I forget how to pronounce it. So this was actually cool to see. You kind of see that there's they go to rescue this Wookiee, the Bad Batch, or they kind of come across the Wookiee being mistreated, I think, and Omega steps in, and she's always wanting to help where possible, which is one thing that I admire about her. Right? It's kind of really admirable and inspirational. She always wants to help people anyway, in any capacity, no matter if it means ultimately maybe them putting themselves in danger. She's like, we got to go back. We got to help them. She doesn't give up on people. So I really like that about her, especially her brothers, which she calls the rest of the Bad Batch or the Clone Force 99. She calls them her brothers because they're all clones. So yeah, this was a cool appearance. There's a whole episode on this Wookiee Jedi. At first you think it's just a young Wookiee, but then you realize I don't know if it's a he or she, I can't remember, but they pull out their saber, and I'm like, oh damn, here we go. And yeah, it was really cool. And so yeah, I don't know if we've seen this a Wookiee Jedi. So I want to say we have, but I can't recall where in Star Wars lore. But yeah, that was season 2 of, let's see, did I get all that right? Yeah, no, episode. Now, why did I put episode 22? That doesn't make sense. Now I'm just realizing there's only 16 episodes in season 2, and I said this was episode 22. Now I forget which. This might be in season 3. Now I'm forgetting now. No, this has to be in season 3 because season 2, that episode with Tech's death was the last episode in episode 2. Yeah, because I remember that's how the season finale was ending with that. So yeah, I think I just had missed a typo there. But yeah, speaking of going on to season 3, so season 3 overall 15 episodes. I think the main theme of this one is Omega does get kidnapped, and then the Bad Batch has to go and get her back. Right? She's there's this whole mystery about why the Empire wants Omega, and then why they are taking blood samples. Because when they initially in season 1, when it initially started off, Omega's in with the Empire. She's in the facility of with the Kaminoans, the ones who created the clones, and they're taking blood samples from people, from all these creatures, these beings, and Omega's being one of them, and we don't know the reason why. So there's like a build-up. It's kind of interesting. There's like a build-up to that, and all throughout season 1 and season 2. And then come to season 3, we actually end up finding that out, and so why she's valuable. The Empire ends up getting her back and taking her back to the lab, the Empire facility, and then so the Bad Batch are trying to get her back. And so I think this was a part of that for sure. There might be season. Yeah, I'm sorry, I got jumbled around with this episode, but going to season 3 here, I know this one for sure. This is episode 5, I believe it is. The Return is what it's called. And this one's another really good episode. Coincidentally enough, or maybe I guess not coincidentally, but one of my favorites, I should say. But coincidentally, it's one of my favorites because the Return sees the Bad Batch going back to that outpost station or that outpost base from the earlier episode I was talking about, labeled The Outpost in episode 12 of season 2. So the crew returns there because they have to access a Empire like data center or data command center to decrypt some information that they have. Yeah, and so they go back there, and Crosshair kind of revisits. It's all that the outpost is abandoned by the time they go back, and then Crosshair kind of goes through some memories of his time being there, and man, how do I put this? So there's a period, I think I kind of breezed over something here that was also important. So, after Crosshair from season 2 shoots at an officer, he gets captured. The Bad Batch and Omega end up rescuing Crosshair. They get him back, and he comes back to the group, right? He reunites with the group, which is another great episode. I forgot to touch on that, but he ends up coming back to the Bad Batch, and just that whole process, right? There was some conflict, some initial hesitation there of taking Crosshair back in because the differences they had earlier in fighting for the Empire, and he was at one point he was actually trying to kill or take out the Bad Batch when he was with the Empire. So now season 3 he's back with them after they rescued him because of Omega. She wanted to go back and rescue him, and so they got him back, and or they escaped together. Omega and Crosshair escaped from the Imperial facility together, and so they're together. But now the Bad Batch and Hunter specifically, there's some hesitancy there, right, to trust him because he's been gone for so long and working for the Empire. And this episode kind of touches on that and that trust, and how even though Crosshair's back with the group, there's still some there's how what do I want to say? There's hesitation there to fully trust him. Hunter still thinks that there's something going on with him, that Crosshair has something planned, or there's some underlying motives there to him being back in the group. And so Omega's telling Crosshair, just talk to him, and let him know that you're actually changed and things are different. But Hunter's still, I don't know, he's still defensive, basically. And this episode, they kind of hint at them building up to talking to each other, but they're avoiding each other, and they kind of bicker and debate and they fight. But then towards the end here, they actually finally talk. Right? So there's a buildup, and they, after working together for a little bit, they actually talk, and they start to air things out. They just let everything out, which again was a really well written episode, because it was relatable, right? I'm sure there's some times in our lives where we kind of hold grudges, or there's some things that it's just really tough for us to discuss with other people in our whatever relationships, work and personal relationships, and it's really hard to to work those things out. I know it as well. I'm sure we've all been through it. And the way they wrote this in the dialogue, it was just really, really relatable. And I was like, damn, that's again another one of those, I think, powerful episodes. So this is probably my second favorite episode here, is this one here, and how they just they talk and they air things out, and this is like their step to kind of now becoming quote unquote brothers again, right? After having seen Crosshair's absence for most of season 2, he comes back, and so now they're starting to kind of be a little more comfortable with each other. Like the walls are starting to come down between the group and Crosshair, and yeah, it was just really good. I guess I kind of will just leave it at that. Something else I will touch on too is, while they had Crosshair, while the Empire had Crosshair after he shot that officer, they were torturing him for information, because the Empire was trying to get Omega, right? And so there was a period there where they were torturing him, trying to get information, but he just wouldn't talk. He was, he really was persistent and determined, and he didn't. From what I understand, he didn't say anything, but he was tortured, and when he finally escaped with Omega, you can tell it really messed him up, and they did a good job. Again, the writers did a good job of addressing the trauma that he suffered, because as with anybody, right? Anytime anyone goes through some really hard physical trauma, it leaves either mental or physical, kind of either temporary or long-lasting effects on you. And they did a good job of showing that, portraying that in Crosshair, where he ended up having a shake. Crosshair being the sharpshooter, the sniper, right? That's what his ability is. That's what his modification was. His strength was just shooting. And after he left and he escaped, that trauma just messed him up to a point where he just didn't have a steady hand anymore, and he was just always shaking. And that carried on through multiple episodes where, he would just always shake it off. And I really liked how they touched on that, and how they kind of showed him trying to adjust. And so you can tell that really had an impact on him, like the torture that he endured through the Empire. Yeah, it was, again, it's just, I just love how they touched on that theme there of trauma and how to cope with that, or not to cope, or doing the best he can. And Omega notices that, and she tries to help him. Right? She tries to help him, and so in this, I can't remember. I think this is the same episode here, or one of the episodes later on in season 3. But you can kind of see here that she acknowledges that, and again, Omega wanting to help people. She suggests meditation, which just kind of keep him calm and kind of just focus on meditating and breathing. And this not only was that kind of interesting to see, how Omega was willing to work with him, and how the relationship that Crosshair and Omega have established that are building. But on a side note, man, some of the shots, some of the animated shots in this show were really beautiful. This is an example. There's a few of them, but this has two examples of what I was talking about in the relationship between Crosshair and Omega, and also this beautiful shots that they have in Bad Batch. Yes, I know they're generated, but still, it's just to have the imagination to come up with something like this. It's still beautiful either way, regardless, right? It was just really, really well done. So yeah, and it was just, again, cool to see, really interesting and cool to see Crosshair's how he's coping with that trauma that he's gone through. Okay, so that was episode 5. Yeah, the return, like I mentioned. Let me see here. And I thought it was interesting they called it return because not only did they return to the outpost, but I kind of took that as kind of meaning that we see the return of Crosshair to the Bad Batch. So maybe that had like two meanings there. It was like a double meaning. I don't know if that was the intention or not, but I thought that was kind of interesting how that could apply in both senses there. Episode 9, season 3, we see Asajj Ventress, and I say the return of the Asajj Ventress because for those of you who've seen the Clone Wars, she made an appearance in the Clone Wars. She had I think a couple of arcs, at least one arc there. Yeah, she one of the Dathomir sisters, I guess you want to call them. So the same race that Darth Maul was. That was kind of explained and established in season 2. I'm sorry, in Clone Wars. But yeah, she makes a return here in the Bad Batch. So another really cool appearance to see her. And I was really excited to see her. I was like, oh damn, it's Asajj. Yeah, and yeah, just a badass. And she was a badass in Clone Wars and a badass here, and just how she carried herself. She just had her presence and the Bad Batch members that were there. Where she was hiding out on this island, where the same island where the Bad Batch were. And I forget how they just. I don't know how long she was there, or I forget if she said how long she was there. But they end up crossing paths, and they both have their egos. Bad Batch is telling her, "Hey, you need to get out of here," because they find out who she is. And she's like, "No, I think I'm going to stay. You better back down," basically. And so both their egos are kind of going at each other. I think you have Hunter, Wrecker, and Crosshair. Them three at that time. I think it was Crosshair versus Asajj. And oh man, this fight! I think the fight scene between them three and Asajj was really well animated. The best in the series for sure in Bad Batch. I think, in my opinion. As far as like all Star Wars animation, I don't know. I would have to go back because there's some good fight scenes in the Clone Wars. But this one, yeah, this was awesome. And she was just taking everybody. Wrecker, like I said, Crosshair, Hunter. Yeah, it was just really cool to see her just because she's obviously she was trained in the ways of the Force, so she already has that advantage. But still, just her skills alone, it was just really cool. And you can tell she was toying with them. She didn't strike them at all with their lightsaber. But yeah, it just shows how much of a badass she was, which makes me really want, a figure of her in 6 scale. So if Hot Toys were to do it, oh man, I don't know if I would want one with hair, or maybe alternate head sculpts, right? You can have one with hair, with her hair like that, and then one with her look from the Clone Wars, and do a double look there. But no, it was really cool to see her in this episode, or in this show. But yeah, in this episode, she was really awesome. Let's see here. And S-Beam confirming no other Wookiee, Jedi, and Star Wars canon other than here and there. Oh, here in Acolyte. Otherwise, it's Legends and prequel. Okay, gotcha. Prequel. Yeah, thanks for confirming there, Beam. Okay, yeah. So that was interesting to see. So I wonder if they're going to actually, that kind of is a setup for other possible spin-offs in other either shows or movies. It kind of opens the door, right? And there's a lot of characters in here that they could either further expand or that they introduce in here, and I realized there's another younger Jedi that survived Order 66, and I forget his name, and I don't have any pictures or photos of. I didn't include any photos or pictures of him, but there was a younger Jedi that I think Omega and the crew, the Bad Batch crew, were helping, and so I thought that was another interesting story. Then maybe they can expand on that, but yeah, one thing I didn't realize too is. Tales of the Underworld, right? So that came out, I don't want to say, yeah, it was last year, but that was along the same lines. That was another Star Wars show along the lines of Tales of the Jedi and Tales of the Empire, I think it's called. But the latest one was Tales of the Underworld, and that follows Cad Bane and Asajj Ventress. And I'm pretty sure, and I forgot to confirm this before I started this stream, the stream here. If that takes place right after Bad Batch, because it makes sense to me. When I saw that, I already enjoyed Tales of the Underworld. You have a few episodes for Cad Bane and then a few episodes for Asajj, and as I mentioned already, both make appearance in the Bad Batch, and so it does seem like it carries over Asajj and Tales of the Underworld. Underwear, Tales of the Underwear, Tales of the Underworld. Asajj has the same look, and so I think it is. I could be mistaken, but I think that is a carryover from here, because at the end of this episode of the Bad Batch, she does fly off from that island on her own. And so having seen Tales of the Underworld first and then coming back and seeing the Bad Batch, I'm like, oh, okay, so maybe, yeah, that's where she ended up going. Like I said, I forgot to confirm beforehand, but if you haven't seen Tales of the Underworld, I think that's a good continuation of that here, and as well with Cad Bane too. I think his story may continue from there also, because after he's here, he's done. He kind of goes off, and so I just like that. They're kind of, they do that here and there, right? They're kind of starting to expand more on the characters that we have here, and not let alone Star Wars in general, but the Clone Wars. There's just like so many characters that they can still continue and go off and write stories. Hopefully they're good stories, right? But it kind of goes on, from here, and it's just the possibilities are endless on where they can go, which is awesome. It's set up for the Star Wars writers, right, and the creators and the developers. It's like they have all this content. And so, Tales of the Underworld, I kind of want to go back and see it again now that I've seen this, to kind of see how that plays out. But, see, I don't have any... I forgot to get some photos on this, but the next episode in Season 3, Identity Crisis, we finally see, after all these episodes, why Omega is so important. And I mentioned that she was an unmodified clone of Jango Fett, right? But then the main Imperial researcher officer, or researching officer, Hemlock, I think his name is. He was the one in Season 3 trying to hunt down Omega and get her back. But he finally reveals why she's so important and why they need her in her blood. And her being an unmodified clone. And so we find out then in episode 10 that what the Empire is trying to do with their secret, with their project Necromancer, I think they call it, is working with Emperor Palpatine / Darth Sidious. Hemlock and Palpatine, what they're trying to do is make clones of creatures or being that have a high M count. And again, this is something else I forgot to confirm, but I believe M count is referring to metachlorian count, and the metachlorians are what, per Qui-Gon in episode 1, right, or what give people the ability to use the Force. A higher metachlorian count, or people are more Force sensitive, I should say, right? And so, like, I was kind of paraphrasing, the metachlorians make up all things, all beings, all creatures in the universe. And so we find out, and so I all that to say, I believe that's what M count is referring to, is the metachlorian count. And so we find out in that episode 10, Identity Crisis, that Palpatine and Hemlock are trying to clone beings who have a high M count. And I don't know what high is, like I don't know what that range is or what that limit is, but for some reason they just keep failing. And then they find out that Omega's blood is the key to properly or accurately clone or recreate those beings with the high M count. I think, what does he say? That Omega's blood is the only binder compatible to recreate M count labels from beings with high M count. So without Omega's blood, they're not able to replicate it like they want. And so they find out that, they run the test. Finally, after doing all those tests that I mentioned from season 1, they're doing all these tests on beings. They realize Omega's blood is the key, which then in turn would mean, theoretically, Boba Fett's blood would also be key, right? If Boba Fett's also an unmodified clone like Omega. So I thought that was kind of an interesting connection there in that sense. But and so it kind of adds a whole nother level of lore there. I'm like, holy shit, like they're trying to unmodified clones, but also they were trying to clone these creatures, these beings with high M counts. That was a really cool premise there in that aspect. And so there's another kind of identity. I think the Identity Crisis in this episode was referring to one of the head researcher. Her name was Emery. She was kind of also going something similar to what Crosshair was going through. So Emery was at this point a lead researcher scientist of that Project Necromancer, about the cloning and finding out how to properly clone these beings. And so she is also ends up being one of the clones that starts to have some conflicts, internal conflicts, like Crosshair has, where she recognizes that they are testing, and they're testing on these younger creatures, these younger, I guess I don't know if you want to call them people or beings, I should say, as part of this project. And so she's just seeing again what the Empire and their ways and what they truly are. And so she starts to have some back and forth, and then she ends up going the Bad Batch route and wanting to save and do better, and so she helps Omega in the end. But so I think that's what episode 10 Identity Crisis is referring to, is just her having that internal conflict as well, and that on which side she actually should be on, or where she's actually stands with that. So again, another really cool episode. Um, let's see here. Yeah, I think everything else, they're trying to get Omega back. Like I said, she ends up going back to that Imperial lab research facility, and the Bad Batch are trying to get her back and trying to find clues and ways because they don't know where that lab is. And so there's a few episodes where they just are trying to find out, the Bad Batch are trying to find out where Omega is after she's kidnapped by who is it, Cad Bane. I think Cad Bane ends up taking her and getting her and taking her back to the lab. And so the next few episodes, the Bad Batch are trying to get her back. And that in itself, actually, that another well thought out, I guess, well written series of shows, right? Because it ends up being like I don't want to say a murder. It's like a mystery, like a how would you like they're in search of her, right? But they have the way they go about it. They have to go through multiple clues, and they have no idea how to find her because there's this place that she's somewhere, but they don't know where she is or how to get there, and so they just have to start going to different places, talking to different people, and it's just that whole intrigue and them trying to find out based on nothing, where she is, and it's just how they go about that in the next few episodes. I thought was really cool, and it was okay, we got to talk to this person. We find a hint of a clue or something. It's like, okay, well, maybe we'll check out this person, or go to this place and check out this thing, or we have this device. Now we got to decrypt it and see what kind of information it has. And it's just one thing after another like that. And I thought it was just overall you can tell. Well, I can tell that it seemed like it was thought out, and it left me in suspense to each one. It's like, how are they going to find her? Are they going to get closer, or how are they going to find her? Basically, I eventually knew they were going to find her, but how was what I was more intrigued with. And so that was just really, really kind of like I don't want to say like similar to like a bank, not a bank heist. Like, yeah, I don't know how to describe it. It's something like planning for some sort of kind of difficult task. Yeah, I don't know. I'm drawing a blank here. I know it reminds me of something, but I just can't like articulate it. It was just really intriguing and really cool to see. Let's see here. S Beam saying, fun fact, Vice Admiral Rampart is voiced by Noshir Dalal. This wasn't his only Star Wars project, as he did mocap and voiceover for Bodhi Akuna in Star Wars Jedi Survivor. I think it's Bodhi, as well as Charles Smith in Red Dead Redemption 2. I think. Oh, okay. So he seems like a voice actor and a mocap actor. Nice. I did not know that. Thanks for sharing, S Beam. Yeah, Rampart wasn't interesting. That was another. I'd even touch on that too, man. There's just so much on this. I can probably go on a while, but yeah, Rampart was another interesting character that they touched on. His being an ex-Imperial officer and the Bad Batch having to go to him. Yeah, it was just, man. Yeah, so many good things of it. I can't even go over all of it, but all of you who've seen it, So then this brings, I think I'm gonna wrap up here pretty soon. To the final episode, the cavalry has arrived, and another one that was really, this was heartwarming, really relatable. I think it was something that I kind of related to as a parent. I mentioned at the beginning that the Bad Batch they were hesitant to take on Omega, being a younger kid, and they didn't know. That just wasn't there. They were soldiers, right? They were warriors. They didn't know anything about raising a kid or taking care of a kid, and so, I mentioned throughout all the episodes, you kind of see how they slowly start, the relationships start forming with all of them. And so after they get Omega back and they rescue her from that facility, I guess you would call this, what is this, the prologue, kind of like the final part of a story or like of a book. I think it's a prologue or the epilogue. I always forget which one's at the end. You can tell I'm not a reader. So the final end part, basically, after the conclusion here. We see Omega, she's all grown up, and we see an older Hunter here, and it's only Hunter. Crosshair and Wrecker are still there, and Echo is also still alive, but he went to go off and do his own thing, and I take it he went to go back to work with Captain Rex, because he was working with Rex as well, but he went to do his own thing to kind of fight with the Resistance or the Alliance, to fight against the Empire, basically. Hunter and Wrecker and Crosshair stay on this island that they've been hiding away at. They just find a life for themselves and just kind of stay and live there. And so Omega comes back and she's older, and she just tells Hunter, you know what, I want to I'm ready to go do my own thing. I want to go fight. I want to be a pilot in the and I guess it's the Resistance, I think she says. And you know, again, you know, there's this quote that kind of really got to me. And you know, she says she tells Hunter, I'm ready. And Hunter says, let me see, I'm just gonna say it. So Hunter says, you're our kid, Omega. You always will be. And Omega says, this is my fight. I'm ready. And Hunter says, I know you are, but I'm not. And that one, oh man, I'm like kind of tearing up already, because it's just like, again, being as a parent, knowing that moment, for those of you who already experienced that moment, to see that point where your kids grow up and they're ready to go off on their own, and as a parent, you just don't want to let go. And oh man, my kids aren't there yet, but yeah, that one really got me, because I'm not looking forward to that moment, but I know it's gonna come. And so, yeah, that one made me tear up, just like I'm doing now. Sorry. Yeah, I know. Man, it was just really, like I said, really emotional. This one, that episode really got me. Really, really relatable. Like I said, it hits harder if you're a parent, but I think even if you're not a parent, that just shows, you know, like Hunter calling her his kid, right? Or like the group referring to her as their kid, and she always will be. It's like that level of a parent, and it's just. Again, it hits harder if you're a parent, and also if you've seen the full series, the whole show up to that point, and you kind of see that relationship build up, and it's just more powerful. And so, yeah, very touching, very relatable, and we understand that at some point as parents we gotta let them go. So yeah, it's just, man, really good. And so yeah, that was that. Overall, man, I think you all already got the point. I just love this show. I'm glad I was here able to talk about it. I know I'm late to this. I'm behind, but still, no matter how late it is, if you haven't seen the show, if you made it this far and you haven't seen the show, I know I've spoiled everything for you. I still go back and watch it. And even if you haven't, or if you have seen it, of course, I'm sure you'll want to go back and watch it again at some point, like S Beam here pointed out. Yeah, epilogue here confirms, yeah. And then S Beam's like, yeah, I fully understand that, Feezy. Yeah, exactly. So I mean, yeah, you're a parent also, you know what I'm talking about. So yeah, it was just yeah, man, it's just one of those things. But let me see here. Oh yeah, overall, just again, really great show. Thank you all for who suggested and were pushing me, like, you need to see it, you need to see it. Like, we're telling Gio now, the movie canon, like, hey Gio, you gotta watch it, man. It's just really good. Maybe I went too in depth, or I got too deep on this, but like I said, I appreciate the writing and how well it seemingly was thought out. And again, no matter animation or live action, good writing is good writing. So it's just, yeah, multiple praises for the show. Really good, a great show, I should say, overall. And every episode I think was intriguing. So if you haven't seen it, I do recommend you watch it. But yeah, let's see here, where am I on time? Yeah, I was gonna, real quick, some similarities that I've seen comparing. I did see Andor, and season 3, I would kind of say there's some similar themes there to Andor, like I was mentioning, where, you know, there was some arcs in Andor where they're trying to set up a like certain tasks, certain heists, right? And they kind of come together as a group. Andor he's working with other people to kind of get certain things done, and they're fighting against the Empire as well to kind of, you know, stick it to the Empire where they can. And so that had similarities here in season 3. And then all throughout the show, I will say though, what I comparing those two in that sense, right? So you have this group trying to stand up against the Empire and doing like these things that seem small, but in the grander scheme, they're trying to take jabs at the Empire where they can. But then you also have Imperial officers who are going after them and trying to either retrieve something or just take them down. I will say I thought Andor was good. I'm not one of the ones who thought it was great. Yes, the acting was really good, but I didn't like how much Imperial inclusion of the Imperial officers there were. I felt like a lot of their stories could have been cut in half, in my personal preference. It was just too much. I could have done without. I think this here would have been, the way the Bad Batch did it, would have been perfect for me. Like, it's just, there were some insights into some of the Imperial officers here, but not to the point where like I was turned away. Like, even still, I was still intrigued by some of the officers, and what some of the things that they were going through, or they were seeing, like I mentioned earlier, Emery and how her conflict was about seeing how the Empire is. I liked it was more shortened but to the point here in Bad Batch, whereas Andor it like dragged on, I think, longer than I would have liked, basically. And so that's why I personally didn't love Andor. It's just I could have done less. I could have had less of the Imperial aspects of it, of the officers of that show. And so yeah, I just wanted to kind of point that out in the comparing the two. I think Bad Batch did it better in my opinion. But yeah, 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 S-Beam, yep. Bad Batch was a great ride, and Blue Tattoo, yeah, it's so good, yep. Yeah, man. But ladies and gentlemen, yeah, that was it. And again, yeah, sorry you kind of had to see me go through that teary-eyed moment there, but like I said, it just gets me in my head. When I go back and think about it, it really gets me, man. I loved it in summary, but thank you again for tuning in, for watching. Let's see, links in the description below for any other content. Just keep it locked on my channel here, Feezys Media, for other future That One shows or That One movie content. If you enjoy this, found it entertaining or informative at all, don't forget to hit that like button. Be very much appreciated. And with that, we'll catch you on the next one. Thank you all, and have a good night. See you later.